What's good, everybody? This is Old Papa G, and we're back with another World of Warcraft video for you guys. Honestly, it's a pre-patch. We know a lot of things constantly have been changing, so I wanted to go back and remake this video for you guys. We're going to go over the top 5 2v2 arena comps that don't require a healer right now. For me, as I've noticed through the years of playing WoW, a lot of expansions required you to have a healer for 2v2s, and it kind of takes the fun out of things. So I'm happy to see that the burst is such a big thing in this meta, in this expansion, that you don't necessarily need a healer. So now you don't really need to worry about going through all the healers in your realm and hoping that you could get one to team up with you if you don't have a friend to play with. So this is really a great thing, and everyone that does arena and does PvP should be excited about this. So now I want to jump right into it. So first off, we got Windwalker Monk and Feral Druid. So recently, both of these classes have been buffed. I'll get into details of what buffs have happened for each spec and why. Another thing to mention before we get into why they work well together is they're both in the upper tier in terms of 1v1. So since that's the case, you put them together and they seem to work really well together. So let's jump into why they work out well together. So the first thing that I want to go over is one of the buffs that has happened to Feral Druid. So Feral Druid used to rely a little bit more on their bleeds, but with a recent change, Ferocious Bite has seen a nice increase in damage. So now they don't really need to just rely on their bleeds. They could put a lot of output out if it's needed. So that's a big change because, like I've mentioned, in this meta, in this expansion, burst is the big thing. Burst classes, for the majority, have been prevailing. So because of that, that's great. And obviously, Cyclone has been baseline, so additional CC, crowd control, is helping it out as a unit. Another thing to go over with how the match would begin. For Windwalker Monks, they have a move called Fallen Order. It does huge damage right now. You definitely want to open up with this since you have no healer. You want to open this. Once this starts, a lot of times the other team is going to have to pop everything they have in order to really survive for the majority of other comps. So because of that, you definitely want to start off with this. That way they're burning through their cooldowns just to sustain and survive through that initial burst. Now, after you've done that, the follow-up would be to actually run away. You want to roll out, and obviously Feral has their travel form. You're going to roll out. You're going to do your little off heals, get a little bit of your sustain back up, and now, since you guys shouldn't have really popped too much after that, you run back in. Heart of the Wild should have been more than enough to get this job done for you guys. So it shouldn't have been a big deal for you to run in and run out real quick. So the follow-up is when you go back in, you're going to pop Berserk for your Feral Druid. You're going to pop Berserk. You're going to try to burn him down quickly. At this point, since it's going to be a really fast matchup, Touch of Death is now ready to be activated. Touch of Death is a Windwalker Monk move. It's definitely by far the best execute style move in the game. They have to be at 15% health, and it's pretty much an instant death. Once you click Touch of Death, it literally is what it is. You click it, touch, dead. It's over. So that's pretty much how their matchups go about it. It seems to be pretty well worked out and has kind of been proven time in and time out as I've been seeing it happen. And that pretty much covers the Monk and Feral Druid. One of the trends right now in this top 5 and just in arena in general is double stealth is the way to go, or like, you know, stealth camouflage, invisibility with the mage, stuff like that. So this is a little bit of an outlier, which is nice to see. So now our number 4 spot, Feral Druid and Marksman Hunter. Before I really get into this one, the one thing I do want to say is survival is going to be viable. I just want to go over this real quick before we go into how they work out together and why they work well together. It just seems like everything's trending in the direction where Marksman might see a nerf. And Survival has seen numerous buffs consistently throughout this pre-patch. So because of that, it could be flip-flopped, but they still haven't nerfed Marksman to this point, so I could be wrong. And if that's the case, that's the case. But regardless of what happens, Survival is also viable for this comp, but I'm going to be going over Marksman. Okay? So one of the things is now it's a double stealth. As I mentioned earlier, what's a popular thing? There's a double stealth. So one has prowl, one has camouflage. It's going to play similar to Hunter Rogue comp, but the difference is now instead of just having like self heals, now you have good off heals to sustain. So that's a good thing to consider. Hunter remains like the same gameplay as it is usual. You're going to start from camouflage. You're going to pop True Shot Aurora. Then you're going to double aim shot. And it is possible to get two huge crits to lower them down to the point where you could already use your kill shot. From the kill shot, obviously, one of their main conduits, the reason why they're so overpowered right now, or they seem to be in the S tier remaining there, is the line of sight conduit. So they don't have to worry about line of sight, people behind pillars, people running away that are getting behind stuff and they can't use it. Hunters can deal with this without a problem at all. So that's what we're going to do with that. And this 2v2 team in general has been a relevant 2v2 team for multiple expansions at this point. They were good in BFA. Obviously, it was survival instead of marksman. They were good in BFA, but I think, in my opinion, that they're even better than they were in BFA right now. So I just wanted to say that as well. For the Feral comp, one of the things they're definitely going to need, especially for this type of team, is Leader of the Pack. That way, what Leader of the Pack does for Feral is their auto attacks heal them as well. So now you're getting like an auto heal, passive heal without actually having to click a heal and getting out of cat form and stuff like that. So I just wanted to mention that. So obviously, Marksman's one of Marksman's abilities is Lone Wolf. It's a passive ability. So when they don't have their pet out, they have 10% increased damage. However, when you're running a team that doesn't have a healer, obviously this is no healers, you're going to want to have a leech pet to call out just in case things are going bad. Just to call out really quick, hit the pet's move to get the leech life, and then switch it out. That way Lone Wolf passive goes back into play. So I just wanted to mention that as well. And like I said, like everything is subject to change, just keep that in mind that survival could see a jump and marksman could see a nerf. So that pretty much covers them. I have a funny feeling you guys will be able to guess what's number 3. Sub-Rogue and Marksman Hunter. Wow, it's almost the same exact team. For this team, I would not recommend Survival. I would recommend just sticking with Marksman Hunter. This team is also good for 3s. All you have to do is add a Discipline Priest or a Resto Druid, and it's a good 3s. I just wanted to mention that before I start. Again, excellent burst. We already went over the Hunter. I'll go over that really quick. What makes it good? Obviously, the double aim shot, line of sight, and kill shot. So that's the one thing about them that you don't really. I don't need to go over that again. But now the difference, instead of having the Feral Druid, now you're gonna have the Rogue with Shadow Strike. One of their conduits is that Shadow Strike will deal double damage, 100% of the damage that it just did. So that's something else to really consider because that's really, really good. So here's what makes this comp so good right now. Okay, so one of the things that you're going to pick for Sub-Rogue in all Sub-Rogue builds is the PvP talent Shadow Duel. So what Shadow Duel does is it takes the target of the Rogue and puts them in a one-on-one scenario in the shadows. So normally the scenario would be one-on-one the Rogue versus the target. Here's the catch to this right now. If the Hunter had Hunter's Mark on that target prior to the Shadow Duel, the Hunter can see into the Shadow Duel. And on top of that, the target cannot trinket out of Shadow Duel. So you're in this duel for 6 seconds. So within the 6 seconds, the huge burst, if they do Shadow Dance, and now they're just Shadow Striking, now you got Aim Shot, and then True Shot Aurora, all this going on, Tremere Shot, a lot of big burst. With all that going on, they will likely die if somehow it's, let's just say for example, it's a Shadow Priest in there and they have really good sustain and they're keeping themselves up, or a Disc Priest. It doesn't even matter because following that Shadow Duel, when you get out of it, the other teammate of that person can now be blind into a trap. So into a freeze trap. So it's really, really hard for anybody to really sustain and live through that. So that's why they're top 3. So obviously with all this, they both start off in the stealth matchup. And something else to consider, they both have really good sustain and survivability. So with Smoke Bomb, Evasion, they both have a self heal. The Hunter has Disengage. They have Aspect of the Turtle, Fiend Death. all this put together, they really do have enough to just make it as a team. The burst is just insane. And that pretty much covers them. Obviously, other than the Shadow Duel, their CC chain is really good. You know, you have all these different cheap shot, kidney shot, traps, all these different things are just concussive shot to slow down the target. Just everything put together makes this team definitely a top 3 in my opinion. So now we're going to go on to number 2. Sub-Rogue and Frost Mage. This shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone that this is in the top 5. Maybe it's a surprise that I rank it at 2, but it should be no surprise that it's in the top 5. Rogue Mage combo, just in general, have seen the test of times. They've been good for a long time, since Burning Crusades. They've just always worked well together. I'm going to go over Frost and Sub, but the one thing to take into consideration is that Fire also is viable and it works well. Again, this comp can start from stealth with invisibility and stealth, so they can pick their target a little bit easier. So this comp has really good control of the field, obviously. As being a mage, you have Ring of Frost, Frost Nova, a lot of slows with your Frost Bolt, and other assorted Frost-style moves. Obviously, with poisons being baseline now, Crippling Poison, Wounded Poison, another way to slow and control the field really well. By the way, this team is also a really good 3s team. RMP, which you're just adding the Discipline Priest in. That's another team that has seen the test of times. They've just really been good for a long time. Another nice bonus with the Sub, Rogue, and Frost Mage, or any Mage in general, as I put, Fire is viable. With the Mage, they can give food now to the Rogue, so when they have to go into stealth and vanish and get out of a bad scenario, they don't even need to waste their self-heal or anything like that. Now they could just eat and drink while in stealth, so that's another added bonus. That won't work out with the Mage, obviously, because you're gonna open with invisibility, and the cooldown's a little bit longer, so you probably won't be in a scenario where that cooldown will end, and you'll be able to do that. So I just wanted to mention that. Ice Block now heals the Frost Mage with a Conduit ability, so that way you're getting a heal out of it. So if you do need to Ice Block, now you're giving a little bit stall for the Rogue. The Rogue could vanish or Smoke Bomb, do what it has to do to get out of its bad scenario, and the Frost Mage can now Ice Block and heal while they're in that. Obviously, Blink, if you'll switch it to Shimmer, that way you get 2 blinks. That also gives a little bit of heal, and then you have Ice Barrier. So this team, like I said, it's seen the test of time. Now you could open with a Sap ability. Ice Lance has seen recent buffs right now that they have like 25% increased damage on top of a talent that has a 3% increased damage to Ice Lance that stacks 5 times. So now you're talking a 15% increased damage to frozen targets or with Fingers of Frost. So they have really good output with instant damage, because obviously Ice Lance is instant. So yeah, they really are a good combination right now. They just seem to work really well together. They always have, and probably always will, as long as WoW's around. One of the new additions for mages is called Night Fae. Night Fae is a Covenant ability that basically resets your cooldowns. So this is actually a really big deal, especially when you don't have a healer. So they also have another conduit where they could charge in, and that causes a stun, a 4-second stun. So basically, you would use the charge in stun conduit for the 4 seconds into a kidney, and while that's going on, the other target should have been in a sap into a blind, and now if for some reason it hasn't worked out, you could get out of the scenario and hit Night Fae to reset the cooldowns and rinse and repeat and try to redo it all over again. So it is something to consider. It is a really good ability. I think it's going to be the main choice that's picked over and over again. The one thing I do want to mention, how I have the Fire as viable, because Fire has really big bursts right now, I still think that they're going to be viable, at least with Sub-Rogue. I do think that it's better than Arcane for this team. I don't know about overall, but for this team specifically, I do think Fire will still work out because the burst is so large, and any burst with Sub-Rogue right now seems to be working out pretty well. Alright guys, and to end it off, the big boy, the big duo, we have Sub-Rogue and Shadow Priest. Recently, Shadow Priest has seen a little nerf, but it actually doesn't matter, and I'm going to get into why. So let's jump right into it. So Shadow, the nerf that has happened is a little bit to their damage overall, but it's not huge. It's really minute. It's small. I wouldn't really worry about it, but it doesn't matter because where they really shine is their survivability. that's what they're all about. That survivability and durability is pretty much unmatched for any other non-healer. So they have an impenetrable ability, Power Word Shield, Shadow Mend, which increases self-heal on top of being a good heal to begin with, and then Devouring Plague has huge heals as well. With their new ability that came out, Damnation, applying all dots to a single target makes it very easy to apply all their dots quickly. It's only a 45-second cooldown. Basically, the last thing a sub-rogue needs right now is a teammate with great dot spread, good CC, and insane off-heals and shields to give to them as well. Between Sap, Blind, Kidney Shot, the Priestess Fear, Silence, Psychic Horror, their CC is just top-notch as a team. The majority of these other teams, like I said, have a stealth open, but this shows how good they are that they don't need the stealth open to even prevail like the way they do. Right now, one of the things they have going for them is Cloak of Shadows with Life Swap combo. So Rogue will take 0 damage and Priest goes back to full health when the Priest is the target of the opponent. So when opening up on teams with a healer, you're going to sap the healer. If they do happen to trink out of it because the burst is just really so strong, obviously you have blind right then. You're going to do crazy burst damage on the other teammate. As you're swapping back and forth, it really pretty much is a high probability KO. And then it's the reverse way. You could sap on the DPS, open on the healer. When the DPS trinkets out, blind and or stun lock with all your possible things that you got going for you, and then just burst them down to end it. Obviously, it's even better when you're opening up on the healer because then you also have the silence. You just don't have a stun lock, you have a silence as well. So it just really goes all out, high output, matches up really well against 1 DPS comps. So I just highly recommend this team. Any of these teams in the top 5 are definitely viable. They all work really well. They could all beat teams that have a healer, so I wouldn't really stress it. These are all excellent picks. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really am putting out as much content as I can for you guys. If you do enjoy it, please, if you could do me a favor, like and subscribe. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I always greatly appreciate it.